Hi and welcome to this video. Let me tell you quickly what this video is all about. I want to share with you my personal faith journey. A journey that started as a devout Protestant Christian, struggling with many deep questions about faith. These are the same questions that many of you or people you know are wrestling with right now. Questions like, is the Bible truly the Word of God, or has science actually disproved it? Or, out of all the religions, how do we know that Christianity is actually the right one? And if God is really a loving God, then why is there so much suffering in the world amongst both religious people and also people that are not religious? I wrestled with these questions and many others for years, spending countless hours looking, researching, and talking to pastors and other spiritual leaders, yet these questions that I sought remained out of reach. The struggle slowly created distance between me and my faith, leading me to inevitably abandon my faith altogether and becoming agnostic for many years. God, however, did not give up on me. He miraculously pulled me in, and He revealed the answers I was looking for as a Protestant within Catholic teachings. These teachings did not need anyone exploring them to compromise their existing Christian beliefs or values. In fact, the answers that I discovered strengthened the faith of both Catholic and Protestants alike. These answers brought decades of struggling to rest and gave me peace, clarity, and certainty. And they can do the same for anyone else that are also struggling with these questions. This video is not about promoting any one denomination over the other. My wife and I, who are now Catholic, were Protestants for over 3 decades, and all of our families still are Protestant. What I am sharing with you in this video will help Christians of all denominations find profound answers that will strengthen their spiritual journey. Even for those who are not religious, atheists and agnostics, I've walked alongside you for many years, and I believe the same as you do for a very long time. And these insights can help address doubts and questions about faith in a meaningful way for you as well, and also help you to understand religious people around you, family, friends, a lot better. So in this video, I will tell you about our journey and help you understand how we arrived where we are today. I look forward to share our story with you. Both my wife and I were raised in loving Protestant Christian homes by amazing parents in a small town called Secunda. We were both from middle-class families and baptized in the Dutch Reformed Church, where most of our foundations in faith were laid. We did not know each other while growing up, despite being from the same small town. As we got older, many younger people and some families, however, started to engage more with charismatic and evangelical churches, and we both separately started attending the Apostolic Faith Mission of South Africa on a regular basis. This helped form our spiritual relationship in a different way than the more traditional church where we were brought up in, and is where we started growing spiritually as young adults. Melissa, my wife, remained very true to her faith and devout. Me, however, as a young rebellious man, most certainly did not always live up to the standard a devout Christian should. A lot of this rebellion was also caused because I had a lot of questions about faith, and the church did not always make a lot of sense to me. But from a very, very young age, however, I was regularly encouraged by my loving parents to meet with pastors and Christian leaders and ask them these questions so that I can hopefully find some answers. The answers, however, unfortunately, from many of these leaders was many times that I should stop asking questions. And to me, this was kind of the most ridiculous thing, because the reason why I had these questions are things don't make sense. And now I was told to ask less questions. In my mind, this didn't make any sense. But nevertheless, I submitted. And I was drifting back and forth between being rebellious and trying to patch up my relationship with God on a regular basis. Something to understand though is here in a small town in South Africa, it is almost entirely Protestant. I didn't even know about a Catholic church that existed, and I've most certainly never even met a Catholic before. As ridiculous as it may sound to anyone else, is both my wife and myself kind of assumed that Catholics are some other religion and not really Christian. Not because of any factual basis or any teachings or anything. It was just kind of the environment that we grew up in, and that the Catholic faith or the Catholic Church was something completely foreign to us. As time passed, I started building successful businesses and was engaged to be married with someone before I actually met Melissa. Life took a turn and my businesses started falling apart, and so did my engagement at the time. And after entering into bankruptcy, I decided to join the British Army. I only spent a year in the army and got injured that led to a medical discharge. But before going back to South Africa, funny enough, in the army, I was one of the very few Christians in my platoon and was regularly challenged in my beliefs, which also revived many of the past unanswered questions. But I remained steadfast and even started prayer groups and led some of my fellow soldiers to Christ. Upon my return, I met my amazing wife Melissa, and we dated for almost 5 years before getting married. Together, we experienced a great revival in our faith. Also, during this time, we ended up both in Pretoria after 2 years in a long distance relationship, where we started exploring numerous churches, all Protestant, and eventually settled into a large non denominational Protestant church in Pretoria. We really developed a deep and loving relationship with God and deepened our faith and prayer life significantly. But after some time, after getting married, I also started working much more in technology and engineering, which introduced me to various scientific fields. This curiosity led me to read up about how science and the Bible come together, and in some cases also contradict one another. And I read up about many debates and arguments on both sides, and this started to make me aware of many of the questions that were not always well answered. Some of the defenses of the Christian faith most definitely did not hold water in my mind, and I started to become doubtful of some of these concepts that we actually believe in. It was not, however, to such an extent that it drove me away from faith. It did, however, start changing my views, so it was not entirely mainstream with the church we were in, which is most certainly not uncommon for many people in the church. There is not a central set of rule or beliefs recorded across Protestant churches, and therefore there's many varying opinions and interpretations on many things, and I fitted very well into this narrative. As the questions, however, continued to grow, I got to a point where I decided that I'm tired of asking experts that seem to never know the answers of the questions that I was looking for and tell me to stop asking questions, and that I would embark on studying Bible studies formally through a well-known theological college online. My aim and objective was clear: to deeply understand why, what we believe is true, and put all these the people that attacks the faith in their place and become a strong apologist for the faith. I enjoyed the debates and conversations with atheists and agnostics as they were asking the same questions that I was. And even though I did not have solid answers for them, I decided that these new studies will actually help me attain them. Man, was I disappointed. The course that was the backbone and the syllabus of many evangelical seminaries did very little to explain why, and instead insisted on believing the Bible is the truth. It was not a true theology or philosophy course, and this was more of a Bible study course. However, because most pastors of the churches we attended that we looked up to studied the same and supported this syllabus in many of their own Bible schools, I decided to give this a very good shot. So I managed to push through the first trimester out of 5, and then just could not handle the agonizing battle of questions inside me anymore. This was a huge setback for me because in my pursuit of the truth, I just felt more confused. I eventually scraped the courage together to push through at least to the third trimester, as this was where you got through all the fundamentals. And the last 2 trimesters are only more overarching topics and not really the foundational beliefs that I was after. I finished this up to the 3rd trimester and walked out with more questions than I had ever before. It shook me to the core of my faith in a way that was very difficult to understand. This has led me to not wanting to be in the church anymore and continued for years. My wife Melissa remained devout to her faith despite us not being part of any church, but the gap just got wider and wider between us. I then started to extensively research all of the counter-arguments to the Christian faith and started to find more solace in some of that than in my faith. I eventually got to the point where I decided to stop lying to myself and not only admit that I am agnostic, I have been agnostic for a very long time. This was a rift in our marriage, as my wife did not share these beliefs. And to not hurt my family's feelings that were also all very close to me, I did not share my irreligious beliefs with them. I felt that there's no need, as it will hurt them severely to know that I have abandoned my faith and there would be no gain from this. Despite that, because we're a close family, everyone was utterly aware of it, and it just became a topic that was never really discussed anymore. The acceptance of being agnostic, however, invigorated my pursuit and study of why Christianity was false, as I had to justify this now, and I did. I deeply entrenched my agnostic beliefs to such an extent that I had what I believed an answer for any Christian argument on why Christianity is false. I was happy with the fact that I found the truth and that most things now made sense to me. Despite my confidence, my wife remained faithful. In order not to let our marriage go to waste, she had withdrawn into herself and started to worship and pray without me in a way that was almost secret, as to not offend me. I have never asked her to do that, but I was adamant about coming to some sort of consensus if we were to raise children and what to actually teach them. I know this was difficult for her, but I also know that my pursuit of the truth was real and it was honest. And even though the truth might be difficult, we have to pursue it, and we have an obligation of raising our future children in the truth. Every time, however, we tried to find some sort of consensus for that purpose, it caused a lot of pain and hurt. And we never could find any consensus. It only caused strain in our marriage. Something that troubled me deeply, because we've always loved each other with all our heart and all our soul. The one thing I never found an answer for, however, in my new agnostic beliefs, is my prior relationship to God. This is the reason why I was agnostic, and the only reason why I was not atheist, is despite deeply researching it from a psychological perspective and trying to explain it away in some sort of a psychological disorder, I could never put that to rest, and it made no sense to me. Also, one of the most defining moments for me when I was still a Christian was attending a massive men's conference called Mighty Men, led by Angus Buchan. And during this weekend, the presence of God was so powerful and overwhelming that it was simply impossible to deny. It was the only time in my life when the peace of God felt so tangible, almost like you can reach out and touch it in the atmosphere. Explaining this experience while holding my agnostic beliefs was incredibly difficult, but I came to see it as some sort of mystery, something I will probably just never understand. But since it happened only once in my life, I tried to rationalize it as perhaps some emotional or slightly delusional moment that I had in my life, but it didn't make sense to me because I simply could not deny what I have felt. In a way, that was the only justification I could find to stop letting this one question continue bothering me. Everything else made sense, and as I tried finding answers in my faith, I could not find them, and now I felt that I had clear answers for all of my questions, except the one of my prior relationship with God, which I obviously struggled to make sense of. We underwent significant changes to our business and had some major setbacks, and then decided to pursue our lifelong dream of living in another country, especially moving to a first world country where it was a safer place for us to raise children. The nature of our work was to such an extent that we could work remotely and had open choice. Because this was the lifelong dream of myself and Melissa, we had discussed countries in the past many times, and one of the biggest decision points in the past was always that it must be a Protestant country and that it should be have a close church that we want to attend nearby where we live. This, however, was most certainly no longer a factor for me as an agnostic, and we came across a small country called Malta in Europe. I would never have considered this country before, as it is one of the most Catholic countries in the world, almost the exact opposite of the small town that we grew up in, as here you will find very few Protestants, and the overwhelming majority of churches and people are Catholics. But being agnostic, it made absolutely no difference to me at this stage. The issue with Malta is that for entry, with our circumstances at the time, it was very high, and compared to other options, it might have been impossible as it was really expensive. So that was our first choice, and we decided to apply and try, but realized it's very unlikely to happen. And even if it was approved, financially, it will probably prove impossible to actually make this happen. Despite this, it was approved, and we managed to make the finances work and then moved to Malta. This in itself was a miracle of great proportions, but as an agnostic, I no longer believed in these things. Then something unexplainable started happening. The second day after arriving in Malta, I started feeling something very strange, and it started growing every day more and more. That same peace and presence of the Lord that I undeniably felt at that men's conference years ago, for the first time ever, I started feeling that again. And it became really overwhelming and undeniable, just like before. This irritated me, and it made me angry because in my mind, not only did I no longer believe in the Christian faith, these people are Catholics. And the way that we understood it is something different from Christians. So how is that even remotely possible? So the very nature of who I am, like with anything in my life, I started researching and investigating this Catholic Church to understand what is going on. I very quickly realized that our perspectives about the Catholic faith were obviously completely misguided, and that they were not only a Christian church, but directly traced their origins back to the founding by Jesus himself, who chose Peter as the rock upon which he built his church, and who added an unbroken line of succession to Peter all the way to the current Pope. This led to a very in-depth research and exploration of church history, and the more I learned, the more interesting this topic was for me. I was very solidly embedded in my agnostic faith, so I knew it would just be for academic purposes to understand everything, and besides, because Catholicism is such a prominent part of the Maltese culture, it made sense to understand this much better to fit into our new environment, which was the narrative that I explained to Melissa why I am researching this. I then discovered two resources. The first was there was a course that you can get online called the RCIA, which is developed for people that want to understand the Catholic faith and learn more about possibly joining it, and also the Catechism. This is a very extensive book that was written by the church that explains everything that they actually believe and what they are all about in extensive detail. I was in no way interested in joining the faith, but have always been open to learning and love researching new things. Besides, I was confident that I had all the answers I needed to quickly disprove any of this, just like any other form of Christianity. So myself and Melissa started watching the RCI together, and we delved, or I at least delved, into the Catechism. Then something very strange started happening. One after the other, the questions I have grappled with for decades found answer in these resources. Something I spent decades battling with was getting resolved one after the other every single day. I did not want to put the Catechism down. My agnostic beliefs that I have established for many years and entrenched with years of research in such a way that I was 100% sure would never fade started to crumble in a matter of weeks. I, without any doubt in my mind, realized that this was God's handiwork. For the first time in a very long time, I could feel the Holy Spirit moving in me again. The tangible presence of God became clearer and clearer. and became entrenched in my heart. Years of struggles and unanswered questions started to be revealed right in front of my eyes, until one day that I took the courage in the morning and walked down and sat close to a cute little chapel close by outside with a nice view of the other Maltese islands, that I decided I would, for the first time in many years, try and pray and talk to God. I opened my mouth and called out to him, and as clear as day in my mind, I could hear him say, "Welcome home, my son." I sat crying uncontrollably for more than an hour. I did not even know the human body could produce so many tears. I felt the mercy and the love of God clearer than I have ever before. And through the tears and the sobbing, I heard God talk to me in my heart clearer than I have ever before. I now knew this entire journey was the handiwork of God, and He never abandoned me despite me abandoning Him. He held no grudges. He forgave and clearly told me He is there to heal not only me, but my amazing wife that for years could not have had the freedom to openly pray and worship her God. At this stage, Melissa was well aware something was clearly turning her husband's attitude towards religion around seemingly overnight. Anyone that knows me also knows very well convincing me about anything when I've made up my mind it does not happen. And yet here comes God and flips all that around that was entrenched for many, many years, just in days. Also, it restored hope in my family. Members that for years had prayed for me and never given up that somehow God would reach out to me to restore my faith. This was a journey that led us to a specific country, this specific village, in a specific moment of time by God's grace. I started reaching out to the local priest who embraced us with the same embrace I felt that day when I prayed for the first time in years. And I asked him to explain to us how to join this church. We began to meet regularly, where I continued to find more answers and work through all of the teachings and the catechism, and also finished the RCIA together with Melissa. Where we are now is the opposite of where we grew up, in a Catholic community with very few Protestants around, and God has placed us here to form part of this community and this church for a reason. After prayer and discernment, we decided to join the Catholic Church and come into full communion with the Church. We can now share our newfound teachings and answers to questions with our Protestant family that supports us in full on this beautiful journey with God, and we learn from each other in ways that we never even thought was possible. Many things in Protestant teaching and understanding makes more sense by looking at it from a Catholic perspective, and a lot of the Catholic teachings resonate with us because we've got a Protestant background. God made it clear that to me that the questions that I battled with and the answers that I have found to be shared, because there are many other people that are also struggling and suffering with doubt and uncertainty, and He wants to help. Catholics, Protestant, Orthodox, agnostics, and atheists alike, it needs to be shared with everyone. And this is why we are sharing our story with you, so that it can inspire and give hope. Bring together many denominations and irreligious people and share our answers so that you and whoever needs it can find peace, certainty, and clarity. One thing you can learn from our story and that I can vouch for is that it does not matter who you are and what your background is. God never gives up on you. He will move life around in profound ways to bring you closer to Him. He loves you more than anything else, more than what we can ever understand. If you don't feel that, He is calling you and patiently waiting for you to come home. In my next video, I will deal with the first set of questions that I battled with. This is about science and the Bible. Is the Bible the true Word of God? And is it the actual truth? And is there no scientific evidence that actually proves the Bible wrong? It will be explained in an easy-to-understand manner for any person to grasp. Nothing technical, just in a clear and empowering message. Just like our story. What I'm going to tell you now is very, very important because you can make a huge impact in someone else's life. And I want you to head over to our website, questourney.com. You can see the spelling on my screen here. You can also visit our website from any device, mobile or desktop. When you're on the homepage, I want you to scroll down until you see these 4 steps that I have here. So now you've already done step 1. You've enjoyed one of our videos, and I want you to ask to go now to step 2. Please share this video or any other content that you enjoyed with as many people as you possibly can. There are a lot of people that can benefit by being inspired by this content, and also in their spiritual journey that are struggling with difficult questions about their faith. You can help them by sharing this. You can share it on your social media and also share the video with people on WhatsApp or whatever other messaging platform you are using. Then the next step is, so that you don't miss out on anything, is to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You will see the icons to get to our YouTube channel here, our Instagram page, and also our Facebook page. You will also notice here a mailing list. Please sign up for that. Every time we release new content, we will send this out to our mailing list, social media channels, so that you are the first person to know when new stuff is available. Then lastly, and very important, we spend a lot of time, effort, and resources in making our content, researching our topics, and also consuming resources to distribute and host all of the content. To help us on this mission, please consider donating to our cause so that we can produce more content, improve our existing content, but more importantly, so that we can reach more people to help inspire and encourage them in their faith journey, and also to help them find answers and stop struggling with them. You can do this by clicking on the donate button here, or you can also go to donate in the menu to visit our donation page. As you can see here, you can make a donation securely online via Stripe with a card or through PayPal. Even though the donations are in euros, you can make them from any country or currency, and your bank will automatically convert it to your local currency. You also have an option here to make a one-time donation or a monthly recurring donation. The recurring donations you can actually manage by logging in, and you can also do that by contacting us directly to make any changes or cancel your recurring donation. With you sharing our content, following our pages, and making a donation, you empower us to help someone that is going through the same struggles that we had. Someone out there is stuck in uncertainty and wrestling to find the truth, or just looking for some inspiration to get through the day. We can all be instruments of grace that can bless others and help and support them. Thank you for watching, sharing, and supporting us. I hope you are looking forward to our next content coming out soon. May God bless you and your family. Goodbye.